I just want to show a close-up of my crochet toddler sweater. I'm going to show you how to size the sweater and show you what measurements I have for mine. I used this chart to help me size my sweater, and I'm going to have this chart available for download on my Helen May Crochet YouTube Facebook channel group. So for mine, the measurements, and here's my ruler, I measured from the armpit to the base of the sweater. Mine is 7 inches. The length across is 11 inches, and if you use the chart, I made mine about 22 inches, so if you double it, that's the front and the back. That's how I used the chart. I made my sleeve size approximately 8 inches, so that's in between. I made it approximately in between the 1 year to 2 year. And then the total length from the base of the sweater all the way up to the neck is approximately 13 Here's a close-up of the buttons that I used. I use these buttons more for decorative. They do work as a button, but they do, if you want a more smooth button to fit through the buttonholes, these have some jagged edges. They still work, but if you like a smoother button, then you may want to get the rounder button. So I went ahead and unbuttoned all of the buttons. And yes, this butterfly is also working as a large button. Then this is what it looks like on the inside. You can use the same color inner lining if you want. I just chose to use the pink color. I thought it looked pretty. And this is actually very warm and thick, which I really like. And then for the sleeves, I didn't put the inner lining, but you could do that if you wanted to. I chose not to do that for the sleeve. Also, I want to point out that I teach you a different stitch. You're going to learn a new stitch with this video tutorial for lengthening the sleeve. And you can see the difference between the two stitches, the main sweater and then for the cuff of the sweater. You're also going to learn how to make this popcorn. It's called a little popcorn stitch. They look like little flowers along the center, and it goes all the way around the back of the sweater. And then on the back of the sweater, you can see how I've used pom-poms for the bunny tail. And then I just opened up the sweater so you could see each of the bunnies. And then I also have the graph for this bunny available for free download in my Helen May Crochet YouTube channel Facebook group. And then I just wanted to show you for sizing, I used this 3T sized sweatshirt. So you can see it's a 3T. And then I measured the arm on that one, and it comes to about 10.5 inches, which is spot on, pretty close to the chart, about 10.5 inches for that size group. For my sweater that I show you how to make, I made it a little bit shorter. I didn't want it quite that big, but you can adjust it to whatever size that you want now that you have the chart. And then also you can see the length is the exact same as a 3T sized sweatshirt. And then I just wanted to show you the dress that I made this sweater for. Size 3T dress. It's a short sleeved dress. Close the button side first. And then that's the sweater. For this crochet project, we're going to be making this rabbit, and I already have it graphed out. If you want to make your own, you can design your own, or I have these available for free download on my Facebook group. Here is the other one. So we're going to be making it so that the rabbits are facing each other. So here's the right one, and then here is the left one, if you need to pause the video to design your own. You're going to need your 5mm crochet hook, as well as a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors. I've already made the left side, so I'm going to be showing you how to make the right side. The left side is made the exact same way, but I'm going to show you how to get started so you can see how to follow the graph. For sizing purposes, my first block that I made is 11.5 inches in width. For each of the 2 trinity stitches, they measure 1 inch. So it takes 2 trinity stitches for 1 inch. Mine has a total of 25 trinity stitches across the width. If you want to increase or decrease the size, for example, to get 25 trinity stitches for this project, you're going to multiply times 2, so that would be 50 plus 2 would make 52. So we're going to start with a chain of 52 to get 25 of the trinity stitches. So multiply times 2 and then add 2 if you want to change the number of trinity stitches. The yarn I used is by Lion Brand Yarns, Pound of Love. Here's some information. You're only going to need 1 skein of this yarn. The color of this yarn is antique white. The pink yarn that I used is from Red Heart Super Saver, and the color I used was Perfect Pink. Here's more information on this yarn, and this is all I have left from the 1 skein. You'll only need 1 skein of yarn. I also used Karen's Simply Soft. This is some of my leftover yarn that I have, medium 4, and the color is Pagoda. It's kind of like a greenish blue color, but you can use any greenish color that you want. These are the buttons that I'm using for my project. You can use a sewing needle and thread to sew your buttons on. For mine, I like to sew my buttons on with the yarn, so I need to make sure that I have a tapestry needle that's slender enough to fit through the button, but is also has a large enough eye. So you just want to make sure that you have an eye that's large enough that your yarn will fit through, and you'll need your DMC yarn threader to help you get the yarn through the eye of the tapestry needle. For my butterfly, I'm going to be only sewing the yarn through the center holes, the 2 center holes. That way it'll work as a button. This part is optional, but I have my Clover pom-pom maker. That way you can make a pom-pom for the bunny tail on the back of the sweater. We're going to start with a chain. Just take whatever background color that you want. I'm using beige. You're going to fold the yarn over on itself. Take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch the knot. Then you're going to make a chain. I'm just going to show you 4 of them. You're going to make a chain of 52, or whatever size that you want for the number of trinity stitches. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and finish your chain. I'm going to be making a chain of 52. I finished my chain of 52. Now I'm going to take a look at my graph. This is what my graph looks like. And the actual graph shows row 1 with the color changes, but I like to make 1 row of just the background color. So my first row is just going to be background color. On the graph it looks like a red, but you can change to whatever color you want for the background. You don't have to use red. So for this first row, I'm just using the beige color, and then for the second row, I'll be demonstrating the color change. So you're going to take your crochet hook, you're going to go into the second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, You're going to make a single crochet. Then you're going to go into the same stitch, bring up a loop. You're going to go into the next stitch over and bring up a loop. Next stitch over and bring up a loop. Now you have 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through all 4. And then chain 1. And you completed your first trinity stitch. Then you're going to go into the same stitch you just finished with, bring up a loop, next stitch, bring up a loop, next stitch, bring up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through all 4, then chain 1. And then you just finished 2 trinity stitches. So I'm going to demonstrate one more with you, and then you're going to finish making trinity stitches all the way across to the end. I'm going to make the last one with you. So go into that same stitch you just finished, bring up a loop, next stitch, bring up a loop, and next stitch, bring up a loop. Then yarn over, go through all 4, and then chain 1. Go ahead, finish making your trinity stitches all the way to the end. I just finished 24 trinity stitches, and you can see the 3 in each trinity stitch. Let me do a close-up for you. So here you can see the spokes 1, 2, 3 in each of your trinity stitches. You should have 24 of them at this point at the end, and then have the 2 stitches left on the end. So then for your last trinity stitch, you just go, just like you did before, you go into this last stitch that you finished your previous trinity stitch. Go into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then the last stitch to bring up a loop. And then yarn over and go through all 4. Now this part you're going to make a little bit differently. You're not going to chain 1 on that last stitch. You're going to go into that same, the last chain, bring up a loop, and then make a single crochet on the end. And that makes a nice edge for your work. Then you're going to go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And don't worry, we're not going to be burying all of these loose yarn ends. We're going to be making a back cover to hide them all. So here is your first row. You should have 25 trinity stitches for your first row, or whatever number that you made for your background. Remember, you would, whatever number you want, for example, if you only wanted 10, you would multiply times 2, which would give you 20, and then add 2 for 22. So for this one, we wanted 25, so we multiplied times 2, which would be 50, plus 2 would start with a chain of 52. Now for the second row, we're going to be looking at our graph to see where we need to make the color changes. I actually graphed this in Stitch Fiddle, but they number it from top to bottom. I like to work from the bottom and then work my way up the pattern, so I just numbered it here. So I'm working on the second row now, and you can see that I make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the background color, and then I'm going to change colors at this point. Make sure that you have the right side facing you where you can see the 3 spokes on each of your stitches. This is where we just finished off. Now you're going to go back to the beginning, and you're going to join your crochet hook in the stitch right before your first trinity stitch. So here's your trinity stitch, here's the chain 1, this is the chain 1 stitch right above your trinity stitch. You're going to go in the stitch before, and you're going to join the background color. So remember, we need to make 5 trinity stitches with the background color before we change colors. Go ahead and loop your yarn and bring it through. Bring up a loop. Go ahead and chain one. Then just drop your work a minute and then tie a knot. Then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. We're also going to be carrying our loose yarn end and working behind the loose yarn end to bury it. Go ahead and go into the same stitch. Go behind your loose yarn end, bring up a loop, make a single crochet. You're always going to start your work this way for each row. Then go into your same stitch, bring up a loop, 2 loops on your hook, go into the next stitch, which is the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch, bring up a loop, and then your 4th loop should always fall in the next stitch after the previous row's trinity stitch. You want to make sure that you do that so that you have your trinity stitches line up directly over each other. Then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through all 4, and then chain 1. And you can see how your trinity stitches are lining up, just like the squares on your graph. So I'm going to make one more with you. You're going to go into the same stitch that you just finished, bring up a loop, so that will be your 2nd loop. Go into the next stitch, which would be the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch, bring up a loop, and then go into the next stitch for your 4th loop. And then don't forget your chain 1 to complete your trinity stitch. And you can see how my trinity stitches are lining up directly over the previous row's trinity stitch. So go ahead, follow the graph, and finish the number you need for the background stitch. If you're following along with me, I'm making 5 trinity stitches before the color change. So I just finished 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trinity stitches. I just finished my chain 1. Now I'm going to bring in the pink colored yarn, or whatever color that you want for your bunny rabbit. Go ahead and hook the yarn and bring it through the loop. Then you can go ahead and set your work down and tie a knot. Then you're going to carry the beige colored or background colored yarn as you crochet. You're going to take the new color, you're going to go into that last stitch that you created for the trinity stitch and continue on just as you did before making your trinity stitches. So just bring up, go behind the background colored yarn, bring up a loop with your new color. Now I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going into the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch. I'm going behind my background colored yarn, bring up a loop with the new color, go into the next stitch for the 4th loop, and again it should fall in the stitch after the previous row's trinity stitch, so you line them up, yarn over and go through all 4. Then you're going to chain 1 to complete the trinity stitch. You see how it forms your new color nicely. Now you're going to make the number that you need, just like it's shown on the graph. For my graph, I'm going to need 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the color change. So I'm going to make 9 trinity stitches with the pink color. So I'm going to make one more with you. And again, you always want your trinity stitches to line up. If they're not lining up, then you're doing something wrong. I'm going to go into that last stitch again that I made my last trinity stitch, bring up a loop. Next stitch should be the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch, and then the 4th one will be in the next stitch over. So then I have my 4 loops. This is what I'm carrying the background yarn. That's what it looks like. Yarn over and then go through all 4. And then don't forget your chain 1. And you can kind of gently pull on your carried yarn as you crochet. So go ahead, finish the number that you need with the color changes, and then come back. So I just finished my 9th trinity stitch with the color change. Now I'm ready to go back to the background color. Before I do that, I'm going to cut my color change because I'm finished with it for now. Make sure you leave enough for a loose yarn end. Then go ahead and tie a knot to secure that color change so it doesn't come undone. Just a loose knot, not too tight, because you don't want to ruin the work that you just created. So this is how my color changes look so far. Then you're ready to continue on with the background color. So you just go into the same stitch you finished your last trinity stitch, and I'm not burying the loose yarn in, just let it hang because you don't want it to the color to seep through your work. Here you can just see an example here where you can't see the color change. You don't want to carry it, otherwise you'll see it through your background color. So here's a close-up. So on the back, you just want to drop. We're going to cover all of these, so don't worry, you're not going to have to bury all of these loose yarn ends. But this is what it looks like on the back of the work. And then the front. So now, I'm going to keep bringing up my loops to create my next trinity stitch with the new color. Don't forget your chain 1. And this is what it will look like with your color change transition back to the background color. I'm going to make one more with you. And when you reach the end of the row, come back because it's going to be a little bit tricky for this last stitch. So I've reached the end, and you can see that I have 2 trinity stitches left from the previous row. So I'm going to show you how to make these 2 trinity stitches. It's a little bit tricky to do, so I just want to make sure that you make it this way. That way your trinity stitches will line up correctly. So now I'm going to work the same way. I'm going to go into that last stitch where I made my trinity stitch, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch, which is the chain 1 space of the previous row's next to last trinity stitch. Then go into the next stitch for the last or 4th loop, chain 1. Now you can see you need one more trinity stitch for the end, and this is the tricky part. Let me just show you. So again, you're going into that same last stitch to bring up your 2nd loop. Then you're going into the next stitch, and I just want to show you the tricky part here with the tapestry needle. So here you can see where you have the next stitch, and then you have this gap here created by your single crochet. That's where you're going to go into for your fourth loop. So you go into that next stitch, bring up a loop, that's your third one, and then you're going to go into that last space for your fourth loop. You can take the loose yarn end from the previous row and just hold it in the back. Now you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 4. Then remember, for the last stitch you're not going to chain 1, you're going to go back into that last stitch, bring up a loop, make your single crochet. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through for a loose yarn end. And that is how you're always going to work the last stitch. And you can see how it creates your beautiful trinity stitch in the last row. And all of my trinity stitches are lining up just like the graph. So I'm going to work a couple more rows with you to make sure you get the hang of it. So now you're going to go right back to the beginning to start your third row. Always make sure that you have the right side facing forward. This is, of course, what the wrong side looks like. So that's always going to be on the back. And we're always going to start from right to left with your trinity stitches facing forward. Now we're going to go back to the graph and take a quick look. We're on the third row now. So we can see that we need 2 trinity stitches with the background color before our color change. So here, remember that you always want to start in the stitch right before the chain 1 space of your previous row's trinity stitch. Then you go ahead and loop the background color and bring up a loop with the yarn. Go ahead and chain 1. Then you're just going to lay the work down to tie a knot. And then I always just bury the loose yarn end to start. You don't have to. Then go into the same space, go behind your loose yarn end, bring up a loop, make your single crochet. Then you're going to go into the same space, bring up a loop, go into the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch and bring up a loop, and the next stitch and bring up a loop. Then yarn over and go through all 4, and then don't forget your chain 1. That's how you're always going to start, and as you can see, all of my first trinity stitches line up nicely with that kind of a crochet start. Then we need 1 more before the color change. And again, you don't want to forget your chain 1. It will mess up your whole row. Then I'm going to go ahead and join my new color. I'm going to go ahead and just trim my loose yarn end. So now I'm going to bring in the new color. Just loop the new color, bring it through, and then just lay the work down and then tie a knot. And that's how you're always going to start your color change. And then you're going to carry the background color as you crochet with the new color. Go into that last stitch where you made your last trinity stitch. Go behind your background colored yarn, bring up a loop with your new color. Go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, and remember your fourth loop will be in the next stitch after the chain 1 of the previous row's trinity stitch. And then you don't want to forget your chain 1. And that is what my color change looks like. Then you're going to go ahead and look at your graph to make sure you know how many that you need for your color change. And so here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 with the color change. I just finished the 12 trinity stitches required for the color change. You can see how gorgeous the color changes look in the work, and all of my trinity stitches are lining up just like the graph. Now I just finished my last stitch with my color that I wanted, so I'm going to go ahead and cut my color change color because I'm done with it for now. Make sure that you tie a knot so it's secure and won't come undone. Then you're just going to continue on with the background color. When you reach the end, come back and I'll make that last trinity stitch with you. So now I'm at the end and I have one more trinity stitch left. This is how your work should be looking. Then you're just going to go into that last stitch where you made your last trinity stitch, bring up a loop. Then you're going to go into the next stitch and bring up a loop. And then you're going to go into that last gap and bring up a loop. Move the loose yarn end from the previous row out of the way. Then you're just going to take and make your last trinity stitch, but remember you don't chain 1. Going back into that last stitch, bring up a loop, and make a single crochet. And your last trinity stitch row should look just like this, and you have a nice straight edge on the end. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through for a loose yarn end. And that is all you do to follow the graph. So go ahead, finish making your rabbit graph. Make the one facing this direction and the one facing this direction. When you finish the last row with the color change, go ahead and come back and I'll show you what to do next. So again, here's mine. I just finished the last row with the color change. You can see the design it created, an adorable rabbit. So I have the one facing this direction, and now I'm making the one facing this direction. For the front panel, we're going to need 14 of the trinity stitches. So that means our starting chain, you're going to multiply times 2. So we want 14. So 14 times 2 is 28. and then you add 2, which is 30. So we're going to start with the chain. We're going to start with the outer color of the sweater, which I'm using the antique white. You're going to take and fold it over on itself to form a loop. Then take your crochet hook and go right through the loop. Hold the base with your middle finger and thumb, then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for your slip knot. And we're going to start with a chain of 30, but I'm just going to show you 4. So there's 1 chain. So go ahead, finish making your chain of 30, and then come back. Then you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. And then you're going to make your first trinity stitch. And don't forget, of course, your chain 1. And then you're going to make your trinity stitches all the way across. And when you reach the end, come back and I'll show you how to make the last trinity stitch and then how to move on to the next row. I've reached the end now. I have 1 more trinity stitch to make. The last stitch. Now for this one, again, you're not going to chain 1. You're going to make a single crochet into the last stitch. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And then you're going to go back across. Now you're always going to start it the same way. You're going to want to go in between. I'm just going to show you with my tapestry needle. You want to go into the space right underneath your chain 1. So you want to go into that space with your crochet hook. You're going to bring up a loop, make a single crochet. Then you're going to go into the same space to bring up a loop. You have 2 loops on the hook. Go into the next space over for the 3rd one, and then to the next space over for the 4th one. Then make your trinity stitch. And don't forget your chain 1. And that trinity stitch will be right on the edge. And so now here is your first trinity stitch. So here is your chain 1 space. So for your next trinity stitch, you're going to go into that last stitch where you just finished your previous trinity stitch, bring up a loop. Then your next loop will be in the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch. And your 4th loop should always be in the space right after the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch. Then you chain 1. And when you make your trinity stitches this way, you'll find that each trinity stitch will line up with the previous row's trinity stitch. So go ahead, finish your trinity stitches all the way back across, and when you get to your last stitch, come back and I'll work that with you again. I've reached the end. I have 1 trinity stitch left. So I'm going to make my last trinity stitch on the end. And remember, the last stitch, you're not going to chain 1. You're going to make a single crochet into the last space. Then you can chain 1, turn your work. Then you're going to go into that space right below the chain 1. Bring up a loop. Make your single crochet. Then you're going to go into that same space. Bring up a loop. That next space over. bring up a loop, and then the space right before the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch. Bring up a loop, yarn over and go through all 4, and then chain 1. And then that's how your edge is always going to line up for your first trinity stitch. Then you just continue with your trinity stitches all the way across to the end. And all of your trinity stitches will be lined up, and you will also have a straight edge on both sides. So now I'm on the end, and I'm ready for my last trinity stitch. So I'm going to bring up my second loop. This is my third loop in the chain 1 space, the previous row's trinity stitch, and then the 4th loop. Then I'm going to yarn over, go through all 4, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into that last stitch. Then I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. Then you can also double check and make sure that you have the correct number of trinity stitches. So I'm not counting the edge here, and this would be my first row of trinity stitches. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And again, you're not counting the edge where you're turning, just the trinity stitches, and they should all be lined up just like mine. So I'm going to work this turning chain with you again. So here I'm going to go into that space right below my chain 1, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch over and bring up a loop, next stitch over and bring up a loop, and then that would make you right before the chain 1 space of the next trinity stitch, which is what you want. Go ahead and yarn over, bring the yarn through all 4, and then chain 1. And you can see how it's lining up with the trinity stitch on the end. And then you're just going to work your trinity stitches across. And again, the 4th loop will always be in the stitch right after that previous row's chain 1 space. And then all of your trinity stitches should be lining up. And you're going to keep working this pattern until you get the number of rows that you want for the front panel. And when you come back, I'll show you the number of rows that you'll need before you change colors. So you can see how my work is looking so far, how my edge is lining up beautifully with that first trinity stitch. And you'll have a little bit of an outpouching along the edge, but that's okay. Makes it easier for sewing it together with the other pieces. So this is what my work looks like after finishing 18 rows. You can see how I have a straight edge. I have 14 trinity stitches across. When you're finished with your last stitch, you're going to go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through. Oh, actually, don't finish off for the front panel. We're going to change colors. So you're going to take, after you finish your chain 1, your last stitch, go ahead and chain 1, and then you're going to turn your work, and now you're going to change colors for the two front panels. This is going to be for the inside portion of the sweater. Then you're just going to take and loop the new colored yarn, turn your work over, and then just take and tie a knot. You can go ahead and cut the previous colored yarn and then tie a knot with the loose yarn ends. Then you're going to start crocheting with the new color the exact same way. And you're just going to let your loose yarn ends hang. You're not going to bury them. So you're going to go right beneath the first chain 1 into that space, just like you've been doing for all of the previous rows. You're going to bring up a loop. You're going to make your single crochet. Then you're going to go into that same stitch, bring up a loop, go into the next stitch, next stitch, which should be the space right before the chain 1 space of the previous row's trinity stitch. And you're just going to resume with the new color. So chain 1 and then continue the exact same way. Now, depending on the yarn that you're using for the inside of the sweater, you may not need as many rows. I only needed 16 rows with the pink, so that when I fold it in half, it's equal. So this will be the front of the sweater, and then on the inside I made a pink colored portion of the sweater. So this is the front panel. You're going to need 2 of these, one for the left and one for the right. When you finish the last stitch of your panel, you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through for burying into your work. So you need 2 of these, the left and right front panel. The sleeves are made the exact same way, except that you're not going to change colors, and you're going to need a total of 36 rows. This will be sewn together to form a sleeve, and you'll need 2 of these. I just wanted to show you the measurements. So for the front panels, they measure 9.5 inches in length, 6.5 inches in width, and each of the sleeves measure the exact same, have the exact same measurements. Now for my rabbits, this one is going to be on the left front of the sweater. It looks backwards on video, but this is actually the left front of the sweater. And here's the rabbit that's going to be on the right front of the sweater, and I have them facing each other. So you're going to need a back panel because I don't like burying my loose yarn ends, so I made it an easy method where you won't have to do that. You're going to need a back panel that's going to go onto the back of these rabbits. For mine, it's going to have a total of 50 trinity stitches. So there's 50 trinity stitches across. So as you remember, to get 50 trinity stitches, you have to multiply times 2, and that'll give you 100, and then add 2 to that, and so that means that you're going to start with a chain of 102. So you start with a chain of 102 to get the 50 trinity stitches across. Then you want approximately 23 rows so that it will fit onto the length of your front rabbit panel. So make sure that the length will fit onto the backing. To sew your rabbit onto the panel, you're going to get your tapestry needle, and you're going to need your beige colored yarn or the antique white colored yarn. Then you're going to take the back panel, lay it flat down onto your work area. Then you're going to fold it up, because remember, you want the rabbits to be able to face each other and then for the sweater to open in the front. So you're going to fold up that panel, and on video it looks like the right side, so I'm just going to say the right side. Then take your rabbit and you're going to line it up with the panel so that you can lift it and sew it in place. So you can take and tie a knot with the loose yarn ends that you have there. And then you're going to take your tapestry needle. You're going to start from the inside stitch. So you can see that I'm just going right at the edge on both. You're going to bring the yarn through, and again you want to leave a little bit of a loose yarn end. And at this point you can take your tapestry needle and bring those loose yarn ends towards the center so that they get buried with the rest of the loose yarn ends. I'll go ahead and bury this one too. Then you just take your thread or yarn and you're just going to sew the edge together. Just sew to the top here, and when you come back I'll show you what to do next. Now I've reached the top, so I'm going to go ahead and cut, leaving a loose yarn end. I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot. Then I'm going to take and turn my work so that I'm working along the top, and again this is the right side of the sweater and this is the inside of the sweater. And I'm going to take and join right at the corner. I'm going to grab the back panel and the front panel together. I'm going to use my beige colored yarn. Bring up a loop, chain one, go ahead and tie a knot. And then you can take your loose yarn end and tuck it in. Then you're going to go ahead and chain two, 1, 2, and then you're going to make 1 half double crochet into each stitch across, crocheting the front panel to the back panel across the top. And here's the bunny on the other side. So you're just going to make a half double crochet. So bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through all 3 for a half double crochet. And then you're going to make 1 half double crochet into every stitch across, sewing the 2 panels together. So I'm going to make 1 more with you. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, grab the front panel stitch, and then make your half double crochet. Do that all across the top and then come back. So this is how my work looks so far. I finished going all the way across the top. Then you're going to want to take and lay the other rabbit panel down. So you're going to want to lay it so that the rabbit, of course, is upside down, just like the rabbit on the other side. And the face of the rabbit is pointing the other direction. Then, another thing you might want to do before you start crocheting into that panel is line up the corner so that it matches up evenly as you are crocheting across the top. So go ahead and tuck any loose yarn ends in towards the center. Then you're going to line up the 2 edges And what might be helpful also is to take your tapestry needle. Here it is. Take your tapestry needle and go ahead and get your beige colored yarn or antique white or whatever color you have for your sweater, and just take and sew the two edges together. So just take make sure that you leave a loose yarn end so you can tie a knot, and then bury that on the inside. And then you're just going to go in and out sewing the two edges, just the rabbit panel, not the pink portion. You can see how I'm just grabbing the top stitches, and then I'm just going to sew these two edges together. All the way down to the end. And then come back and I'll show you what to do next. So this is what mine looks like so far. I've sewed the back panels together. Now I'm going to go back to where I was making my half double crochets. And then I'm just going to continue tucking any loose yarn ends towards the center, and then I'm going to grab the top and just make a half double crochet and continue along making half double crochets all across the top. When you reach the end, just come back and we'll see what the work looks like. Then when you reach the end across the top, go ahead and finish off, just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then this is how the work looks so far. You can see how you have the two rabbits, the half double crochet across the top. So now you're going to take your greenish colored yarn and you're going to join it into the top right corner. Here's the right side facing you with the bunny facing with the nose to the right, towards the right. And just go in that top corner and join your new color. So bring up a loop with your new color, chain one, and then go ahead and tie a knot. Then you're going to make a chain of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then single crochet into the next stitch over. Then you're going to single crochet into the next stitch over and chain 8 and keep repeating. You're forming these loops all across the top. So single crochet into the next stitch over, single crochet into the next stitch over, and then repeat, chain 8. And then single crochet into the next stitch over. And you're going to form these little green loops all across the top. So you're going to want to go ahead and finish making the loops all across the top. You're also going to want to sew the edge together just like you did on the other side with your tapestry needle. And then all across the bottom, you're going to make 1 half double crochet in every stitch, just like you did for the top portion. You're going to half double crochet, 1 half double crochet in every stitch across the bottom to enclose the bottom portion of the sweater.